Welcome to Evolution Revolution, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you. This is a new year. This is a fresh start. I know all the things that you wished for and wanted for yourself last year, and to the degree that you've received them and accomplished them, hallelujah, right? Now this year, everything is in front of you. Everything is possible. As you know from previous shows, I bring you guests who are committed to your transformation, the transformation of each and every one of us and the planet. Through their discoveries and breakthroughs in the human potential movement, you get to find new tools, new skills that really work. And you probably know who I am because I've been on Santa Barbara television for 9 years, so you probably know my level of commitment to you is 100%. To showing you the tools and skills that allow you to change any part of the way we think, the way we listen, the way we speak, the way we act, so that we can prevent challenges, not only solve them. So welcome to the beginning of a brand new year and all of your dreams coming true. Now, I am thrilled, once again, really deeply thrilled, to have Mirabai Devi as my guest. And Mirabai is a conduit for the light and for the divine feminine. And she has been working miracles on me today, let me tell you that. So if you see me glowing, it's not a coincidence. And over the years, Mirabai has offered spiritual teaching, darshan, and light activations to millions and millions of people all over the world. And at the end of the show, I'll tell you a few of the programs she has coming up, and I really urge you to participate. It's a remarkable opportunity just to have the privilege to know about Mirabai Devi. So let me tell you, in previous shows, we've been learning about some of the results of her gift with healing, a truly remarkable, miraculous gift. And today we'll hear about more of that. And the real focus today is that you don't need faith in order to allow this healing to occur. It's not required. Many, many people, probably thousands and thousands of the millions who've had this effect, didn't have any faith or didn't believe it would happen or didn't think it would come true, anything like that. So please, if you have a challenge, if you have a serious challenge or somebody that you care about does, please don't let a belief or a lack of belief be a barrier for you. And of course, if you're willing to listen to this with an open heart and an open mind, it's all the better. It just makes it more pleasant for us, right? Yeah, that's all. But that's not the point. We want you to have the results you're looking for. So, this is a time in history when so many of us have committed to being healers, spiritual something, do what we can, do our best, not to stand in the way, all of that. What advice do you have? What instructions or guidance do you have for us?
Well, getting out of the way of your own ego, mind, and personality, because that's what's getting in the way, and allowing yourself to be a conduit for the divine light. Let the divine plan of love and light come on earth through you. Be the instrument, be the vessel. That's what we're all hoping for. What more could we want than that, to work for the divine?
So I'll see if I can let that personality of mine float away. A little tricky on TV, but okay. Now here's another question. This is my favorite question. I mean, this is my favorite question of any question ever, okay? I always want people to be doing more. I'm always listening to people who tell me what their goal is and what their intention is and what their belief is and all that. And I'm then wanting to know, what steps are they taking? What action are they committed to? Now, how important is doership?
First of all, I want to say that listening to the inner voice and following what guidance is showing us as part of our daily spiritual practice to take steps in action to make changes in our lives through our activities is really the ultimate when we're connected to the inner voice and the right knowledge, the right action for us. That's living a dharmic life. That's living our life purpose. So action and doing has to come from higher guidance, ultimately from being, from pure consciousness. If we're just doing because our mind and ego says to do, we're wasting a lot of our own energy and exhausting ourselves. And yet if we're following what's going to be for the highest good of ourselves, our community and our planet, then we're absolutely the pawn of God, being placed on the chessboard where we need to be placed, right time, right place, right circumstances. We're always going to be protected and we're always going to be guided. So that's the ultimate doership, right?
Yes.
In the Bhagavad Gita,
Yes.
established in being, perform action. Yogasta kuru karmani. Established in being. So we establish ourselves in consciousness and in that divine self, and then we listen and follow guidance. If every one of us can practice every day to, as much as we're able to, develop that connection with our higher self, that is the ultimate form of doing.
And I'm going to go back to this one question. So for someone who's sitting and meditating every day, and I don't mean closing their eyes with a laundry list,
Right.
but truly meditating, really when you have committed yourself to being present with the divine, and you've done this for probably years, maybe decades like me, and so you get this guidance, then for those people, I still find so many of them not taking action, expecting that
Right.
others are more qualified or others have the capability. So what would you say for them?
Well,
And speak directly to them, please.
It comes down to, there was that beautiful quote that Marianne Williamson wrote for Nelson Mandela that he used for his opening speech for becoming the president of South Africa, when he said, "Who am I?" You know that speech? We all know
Yes.
that beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful poem, "Who am I
Yes.
to be this bright light, powerful, successful," all of that. And that's the reality, is that everybody thinks somebody else is more powerful, somebody else is more beautiful, somebody else is more successful, somebody else will be heard or respected by others. Who am I? That's the voice of the ego. Little me, who's nothing and nobody, who can't do anything. And actually, the most beautiful aspect of this teaching is that God needs to work through human hands, human feet, and human bodies. So it's our human embodiment that is the embodiment of God on earth. Think about that. So we are bringing God's work into action, divine light into form through our efforts. So in other words, we surrender and the divine will do through us. We don't have to be believing that we're good enough. We don't have to believe that we're worthy of it. We don't have to believe that we're special. We can just trust that somebody has to do it. And if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And if all of us thought that way, we would have no more devastation and destruction on our planet. We'd clean up all the messes throughout the earth and we'd all be doing fantastically. We'd be in a paradise, a heaven on earth, if we all took action. So doing and taking action is essential for everyone, especially at this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means more to me than you can even imagine. That's just what I so desperately wanted everyone to hear.
Good.
Yeah, we do the best we can, and that's the best we can.
Yes. Yes.
Now, you speak about a global mission and also global healing.
Yes.
Tell us more about that, please.
Okay. Just following on from what you just said, is the reason why all of us, all over the globe, need to do it is because who we are is love. Our divine nature is love. So when you look at global healing and global prayer for a global mission, then basically we're on a planet of human beings who have fallen asleep, taken on this amnesia, which is the nature of the ego chip or the ego programming, so that we can be in separation from the divine and separation from ourselves and separation from others. That's the number one aspect of duality. That's what brings duality into form. Divine separates from itself. And so here we have all these embodiments of divine love walking around the planet, destroying each other and killing each other, destroying nature and causing disharmony and chaos. And so my mission, following my divine guidance that I've been following since I was 3 years old, since the divine masters would appear around my bed, 12 of them from the age of 3 on, was guidance and teachings and rewiring and regridding, where I was being electrocuted by the light through different stages of my life and different higher states of consciousness, and being shown how to help humanity to awaken, to spiritually activate in the light, to heal themselves, to heal others, to be forgiven, and to also cleanse darkness and transmute karma into light and into positive energy, into positivity. So whether you do it in a human being, in a group of 20 people, a group of 55,000 people, or whether you do it for the actual planet herself, the body of Mother Nature that is so desperately needing cleansing and healing from all of the negative thought forms, the pollution, the radiation, the toxicity that has gone into our environment, global warming, all the many ways in which we have created the situation that has caused her to suffer and be stressed, and the destruction that has been occurring on the planet, all that can be transmuted. And the first place that we transmute is through prayer. We can transmute pain, suffering, and illness in a negative state into a healed, whole, balanced state of love, which is the natural state of a human being, the soul, which is a natural state of the earth, the planet, the divine mother, Mother Earth, who is a goddess. And any physical molecular structure can be rearranged and changed through specific types of prayer, forgiveness prayer, and we're going to talk more about that.
Beautiful. And now I think we want to start talking about the different miraculous results. Because I think, we love the process, but let's face it, the miraculous results are, where the big applause and the big thrill come, right? So I know that you worked on a lot of us at Center of the Heart.
Yes.
And I know one of the women had just such an extraordinary result. So if you would tell everyone about that, please.
When I was at the Center of the Heart, we did a group cleansing in silence, making certain forgiveness prayers for the group and cleansing them with a transmission of the divine light. And everybody in the group got work done. And there were some wonderful results. She was just one of the results. There were other people that had miraculous healings.
Yes.
But she stood up at the next gathering about a month later and shared with the audience that she had been deaf in one ear, and that was as a result of a virus that happened during a pregnancy, and that she had spontaneously gotten her full hearing back immediately after the gathering when she noticed she was driving home and put the car radio on and was able to hear the music 100% through the ear that had been totally deaf. And that has stayed 100% ever since.
Just thrilling. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Divine Light.
Thank you, Divine Light. It just, again, there is no such thing as impossible. That's what I'm constantly reminded. There is no such thing as impossible. That the concept of impossible is an artificial construct, and there isn't any reason to hang on to it.
Right.
Okay, there was an even more amazing, if you can, or another extraordinary result when you were down south and you were doing all those healings. There was a woman in a motorized scooter. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have to say that the two most amazing experiences that I've had or witnessed of the Divine Light doing its work on individuals, the one was a young girl in Maui that had come to a Friday night group light transmission, and I had invited her to come to a more private workshop the next day. That was at the Temple of Peace on Maui. And she had herself on crutches because of torn ligaments in the ankle. And actually, there was some injuries that had caused her to have a soft tissue bandage to support the leg. And so it was all the way wrapped up to the hip. And this extraordinary thing happened where the divine light worked through, and it took about 3 minutes, just like that. And then the light through me, the divine light through me, spoke and said, hop around the room on the ankle that you had the torn ligaments. It is now healed. And even when the voice said that, it spoke with such power and authority. At first, she looked at me like, are you crazy? And then the authority in the voice was like, okay, I better trust this, do it. And so she did it. And I said, drop your crutches. And she dropped her crutches. And I said, hop on it was a soft tissue bandage, so it wasn't like a hard cast. So she could hop on that leg. And the amazing thing was half the group couldn't look. Half the group looked down. They just couldn't even look. It was so shocking to them. They couldn't even take it in. And the other half of the group didn't even believe it. They were like, this is not possible. This is crazy. This is madness. Yeah. And sure enough, she hopped around the room, and she went to the doctor the next day, and they did some form of a scan on it. And they said, you don't have any more torn ligaments. And the most beautiful part of that story for me was that she wrote me the most beautiful letter. And in the letter, she said, it wasn't that the torn ligaments were healed and I threw down the crutches and I was able to walk. She said, it gave me back my faith in God. She said, now I want to pursue the path of God realization, because that is what is behind this miracle. Yes. And that made me so happy, because really all the healings are a calling card to bring people to the realization of the divine, to want the divine light, and to want to bring themselves closer back home to God. And that's really the reason that I'm being the conduit or the instrument for.
Yes. That it's not the arms and the legs and the vision and the hearing, and those are all wonderful.
Yes.
But it's the transformation of human consciousness.
Yes.
That's why you're here.
Exactly.
That's why we're all here.
Exactly. Yes. And that's why I love that story so much, because it demonstrates, that story truly demonstrates what's behind the healings. Is if we can bring people back to coming home, to awakening their consciousness, to loving each other, to stop destroying the planet, and to want to do good and to be good, which is our nature, then we've succeeded.
You know, when I first began in my 20s, I was committed to animal welfare. And that's what I did. That was my hobby. I did it. But then I realized the problem obviously wasn't the animals. It was the people. Then in my 30s, I started a company and funded it and all that. And it was to transform teenage depression. And we had some great results with that. But of course, what did I realize? The teenagers weren't the problem. It was us, the adults. So that's why I do what I do now, which is about creating peaceful, joyous, healthy human beings, adults, and families. Because ultimately, it's the adults on the planet that are responsible for 1,000% of the problems.
Right.
So each and every one of you who experiences this with Mirabai, who really sees that you are in the presence of this knowing, of this joyousness, of this power, which is the power of God, the power of light, whatever you feel more comfortable calling it, you then live in peace. So those of us who are in peace aren't going to end up being hauled off to prison because we've done terrible things. When you feel peaceful and joyous, you wouldn't contemplate doing any of those crazy things. It wouldn't even occur to you.
Right.
So now tell us another one. Tell us, you could tell us the one about the woman on the motorized scooter or the meniscus, whichever.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when we were down south, there was a woman who had had surgery and was on a motorized scooter because she was not able to walk after the surgery very well, and barely at all, actually. And she came in, and again, the same thing happened. 3 minutes. the transmission came through in about 3 minutes, and the divine light in a voice of authority said, get off the motorized scooter and walk. And she said, no, it's impossible. I can't walk. You don't understand. I can't walk. I just had surgery. That's why I'm on the scooter. And I said, yes, I do understand. I want you to get off the scooter, stand on your both 2 feet and walk. And she said, it's impossible. And I said, get off the scooter and walk. And this was not me talking. This is the divine voice of authority and power talking through me. She very shakily got off the scooter and managed to actually take 3 steps, was shaking in absolute awe and shock and bewilderment, going, this is impossible, this is impossible. And I said, now we were in a church, and I said, now walk through the whole church. And she actually said, I cannot do that. It's impossible that I even took 3 steps. And I said, well, let's walk through the whole church together, and I will work on you while you walk. So she walked through the whole church down a long aisle. I held my hands up and worked on her as she walked, so she felt more safe. She walked down, walked back, left the motorized scooter behind, and has never turned back. Her walking has been perfect ever since. It truly was a miracle.
Wow. Yeah. That is so thrilling. Thank you. Oh, that's just wonderful. Yeah, I'm just ecstatic. Okay, so now the next one. Mirabai had told me that she had worked on a man who had torn his meniscus. So the minute she finished telling me this on the telephone, I went to WebMD because I really wanted to take a look and offer you guys some practical facts about it. So here's what I found. So this is in direct conflict to what we're now going to hear in a moment about how this guy healed. But this is what WebMD says someone could look forward to. All right. First of all, it says, number 1, that with a torn meniscus, some of them can't even be repaired, even with surgery, though some can. After surgery, recuperation is a minimum of 2 weeks of immobilized, just immobilized, no movement, right? 2 weeks after surgery. This may be followed by 2 weeks of limited motion before one is able to resume daily activities. Physical therapy should begin right after surgery. I mean, are you starting to want to go to sleep during all this? I know I am. Heavy stresses such as running and squats should be postponed for some months. One must follow the doctor's rehabilitation plan for optimum healing, and afterwards, one may still continue to have pain and require more physical therapy or sometimes additional surgery. Excuse me. That's a direct quote. Okay, now what I want is I want to hear what happened to the person that Mirabai worked on. In the real world that we inhabit, right?
So he had a torn meniscus from a skiing accident in his knee. And the doctors wanted to perform a surgery, and he told me that he was getting a surgery on his knee. And so I said, well, you know me well. I would like to work on you and help you with the grace of the divine light to heal that torn meniscus. And he said, it's impossible. It's not possible. You can't heal it. A torn meniscus cannot be healed. And that's what's said about that. And so I said, I know that you believe that, and that is the common belief. However, will you give me 4 30-minute phone calls over the phone? It was from Kauai, where I live, to California, LA. 4 30-minute phone calls, and then decide if you want to get your surgery. Okay. Well, he was open. He did 4 30-minute phone calls. At the end of his 4 30-minute phone calls, he said, I feel great. He said, you know, I have a skeptical mind. I'm going to get the surgery. I said, but you don't need the surgery. It's healed. He said, well, how do I know? I said, because it feels better. So he said, well, I'm going to get the surgery. He went into surgery. The surgeons cut open his knee, looked for the torn meniscus. It wasn't there. There was no torn meniscus. It had healed. They closed him up, and they said to him, I don't know if there was a mistake in the x-rays, but there was a torn meniscus when you first came to see us, and there's no torn meniscus now. Somehow, I don't know if there's a mistake or what's happened. Don't know what to tell you. And so he called me and told me what happened, and Now he has faith.
Please don't be one of the people who goes and has surgery anyway. I mean, it's painful to listen to these stories, you know? It's just so painful. My father was a surgeon, you know? So when I hear about, you know, how far things have progressed on the planet Earth since he was alive, he was much older than my mom, so it's been a long time. And please, you know, if the problem is gone, at least, you know, yikes. Yikes. He could have had surgery later, God forbid, in this imaginary world when he thought it was going to come back. So we see faith is a process. This is a great example of how someone doesn't have faith and then they have the result anyway, and then they don't have enough faith to avoid more medical care, even very painful and very expensive medical care, and then the person has an awakening of faith.
Right.
That something inexplicable has happened.
Right.
That incidentally, that doesn't necessarily mean this person now believes in God, though he may. It means he now has an experience of something beyond what he can see, taste, touch, smell, etc.
Right.
So when you have an experience beyond the five senses, that's the beginning of an opening. So tell us more about that. Faith.
Okay, well, first of all, what does Jesus say? Faith is like a mustard seed. And so faith is tiny in human beings. We're so limited in our minds. Our minds are so programmed against not believing anything that we can't see and we can't prove. And so what I'm working with here is changing the molecular structure, remolecularizing the molecules in the DNA through the grace of forgiveness and through prayer. And so what that's doing is giving somebody the direct experience of their own healing miracle. And when they experience the change that's happened inside of them, then and only then do they believe and have the faith to believe. Their faith is restored. My mother had acute sciatic pain. She was in such, my own mother, she was in such desperate pain, and she's a skeptic. And I grew up with her as a skeptic, and I love my mother. She's an incredible woman, very, very strong and powerful person, very loving person. But she went to every doctor, chiropractor, naturopath, homeopath. She had shots, injections, treatments, everything she could do for 7 days. Nothing took away this excruciating sciatic pain. She couldn't sit, lie down, or stand up without the pain being excruciating. She was in South Africa, where I'm from, and I was in California, and she called me and she said, I've called an ambulance. It's coming to get me. I'm on my way to the hospital. You are my last resort. Sorry, I have to laugh.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I don't feel so bad now because I've got family stories I could tell. So this is great.
So she said, can you help me? And I said, Mom, give me 5 minutes and I'll work on you and then I'll call you back. And so 5 minutes later, I worked on her. During the 5 minutes, called her back. With the divine light, a miracle had happened. She got on the phone, freaking out. Oh my God, it's gone. Oh my God, it's gone. What did you do? How is that possible? How did you do that? That's impossible. She was totally freaking out. She had her own direct miracle. And she said, I tried everything. Nothing worked. She said the pain, it wouldn't go. It wouldn't budge, not an inch. And she said, it's gone. I can't believe it. It's gone. How did you do that? And I said, Mom, it's the divine light. It's the light. So anyway, it's a funny story because she ended up calling all my relatives and saying, you know, she really does work with the divine. It's real. I know. I experienced it directly myself. So I watched my own mother gain her faith in the divine working through me, her own daughter, which is sometimes the most difficult, is our own families.
Of course, of course. Now, you know, it's very tempting to listen to this story and think, oh, well, thank goodness I'm not that, you know, tough a person to convince, right? Except each of us, in my experience, is in our own way.
Right.
So why has it taken me until last year to begin to directly ask the divine to eliminate something or bring something? as my first action instead of maybe the third or the fourth choice. Now that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I've known better for, since I was 5. You were 3 and I was 5. I've known better. But for whatever reason, programming takes over, and we don't realize that in our own way, we just aren't using everything that's available to us, doing everything that's possible, and eliminating all that suffering before it gets to be so excruciating or even painful. If you're a little uncomfortable, I think now that's a great time to get rid of it.
Right.
Right then and there. The minute you have a hangnail, get rid of the pain. The minute you stub your toe, done,
Right.
Now, it's interesting to me that we have to shift the way we are in order to sustain healing. So it's not just about being passive and not being engaged in my own life and saying to Mirabai, do this for me because I don't feel great in this part of my body, fix it please, and then go off with no more consciousness.
Right.
There are things that each of us can do to sustain the healing, the gift. Tell us about that.
Wow. Well, first of all, I have to comment on the first half of what you said, because it came to me to share that when we first break a bone or we first tear a ligament, we need to get healing immediately, as soon as possible. The sooner the better, because it sets, vibrationally it sets, the atoms, the molecules, they set into that broken pattern. And once they're set, they're harder to reverse. They're reversible. Anything is reversible. But it's much quicker to reverse if it's done immediately and take it back to what it was before, because it's still, remember, everything is made out of energy. Everything is consciousness. And so our own bodies are made of energy and consciousness. They appear to be solid, but they really are not solid. If you could see through a microscope, if you have the knowledge of quantum physics, if you worked with Vedic science, you would understand, and you're learning about this, that we're made of energy. So reversing and changing the molecular structure back to what it was before it sets is quick and easy and very enjoyable for us, of course, because it takes a lot less time. However, anything, please understand, anything can be worked on, anything can be healed if it's the will, the highest good for you and the highest good of all concerned, if it's for the best. Okay? Now, how can you, your question was, how can you
maintain
yes,
healing? What's our part, basically?
Right, in keeping that healing
that's right,
maintained? So that's a very good question, because often what happens is that if you continue the same action, negative action or negative behavior that's caused the problem, it can come back. So we encourage you, change the behavior that's causing the problem so that you can maintain the healing. That, I would say, is the number one thing. The second one is what I was talking about earlier on in the show. When you listen to your inner guidance, or if I were to listen to the guidance that was given for you, if you were not able to hear it for yourself, which I do all the time in sessions, I would be able to tell you certain actions you could do that would sustain the healing. So without being able to tune into you directly on a one-on-one basis, I'd say focus on the prayers, the forgiveness prayers, and forgive everyone in your life that has ever hurt you, starting with yourself. Go through your mom, your dad, of course your grandparents, your siblings, and your spouses. Start with that to maintain the healing, because we carry their pain and their burdens in our bodies. And so if you cleanse yourself of their burdens on a daily basis, you're going to maintain the physical healing. The other thing that you can do is expose yourself to guided visualization with the golden light. Visualize the golden light moving into the body. Visualize it moving into the chakras. Visualize it moving into the internal organs. Breathe in the light of the sun every day. Work with the divine light. That's going to help your vibrational frequency to stay raised to the maximum. And then also, of course, what you think If you're thinking positive thoughts versus negative thoughts, so changing your belief systems that are negative and your attitudes that are negative into positive belief systems and positive attitudes, not just your personal, but your family and lineage also. When we cleanse and transmute those negatives into positives, much easier to maintain a healed state of consciousness. And if you can get on or jump on a light transmission teleconference, which we're going to make available weekly, you can get a divine light transmission and help maintain the healing. So if you're just on your own and no access to anything, I would say get out and breathe in the light of the sun every day and visualize the golden light when you're indoors coming into your body, and focus on the forgiveness prayers on a daily basis, the concise prayer program and the forgiveness prayers for self-healing, which are available on my website and also Howard Will's website, and we'll give those two websites at the end. Those would be the most effective ways, just in general, for everybody to maintain the healing.
Now, here's a question that I have, but also one of my good friends and former clients mentioned it again to me this week in a conversation. Motivating people who not only don't have faith, but even if they've had this experience, they can be very even angry about it, or have a lot of real confusion about it. They are, not what we would call open and excited about the miracles that are available right here, right now.
Right.
Words of wisdom and guidance on this, please. Save us that are like doing it again and again. Save us some time and effort.
Well, first of all, I have to share my own humor. I'm laughing because I don't mean to be laughing in a negative way. I'm laughing because it's hard for the mind to understand how when people experience healing miracles, sometimes they get angry, and sometimes they get upset or frustrated or sad or even hurt. And it took me a long time to figure this out. Why would that happen? Why wouldn't someone be overjoyed, delighted, ecstatic, grateful? Well, I'm sure you're probably watching this thinking I would be. But honestly, a lot of people don't feel that way. And the conclusions that I've come to are that sometimes the disease or the illness or the burden, the pattern, is the friend we know. It's the pattern that gives us a reason to be. It's something that focuses a lot of our energy on getting attention from others and giving ourselves a lot of misery or self-pity. And when we have something taken away, it can feel like either just something's missing, we don't know who we are anymore, or the identity that we created has been changed and we haven't absolutely vibrationally caught up with that as a vibrational match to what this new vibration is. I'm happy, I'm free of pain, who am I don't know this me. New identity.
I had a flash.
Yes.
Which, believe me, I did not think of this. That's one of their symptoms.
Right. Yes.
The lack of positive expectation and belief.
Yes.
That's a symptom.
Yes.
The anger about having pain removed. That's a symptom. Does that make sense?
Right. It does make sense. Yeah. It does. It's part of it. It's part of the symptomology of the whole condition. And a lot of the condition is coming from negative feelings.
Exactly.
Not just negative feelings about ourselves, which of course everything comes back down to ourselves.
Yes.
It all comes back down to our belief systems about ourselves. We incarnate with these beliefs, and then we attract the circumstances that support our belief systems. And that's why we want to change our thoughts, words, and actions from negative to positive. Because if we are attached to a certain symptom of feeling angry or feeling depressed or feeling hateful, when that gets taken away, that can be a very upsetting experience if we're not reattached to a positive patterning.
Yes.
Which is why sometimes we need to work with people longer to heal the emotional and mental than the physical. Because the physical, in my experience, is that sometimes it heals in 3 minutes, sometimes 3 seconds, sometimes a little longer. Just depends. It doesn't take that long because the body is nature. And the body never lies. It never lies. It's always going to tell you the truth. So if you change the consciousness of the DNA of the molecules by peacemaking with the cause of the illness, automatically that bone is going to fuse. The ligament that's torn is going to fuse. The disease's pattern is going to go into a healthy patterning in the cells, because the original memory is of health, is of balance, is of wholeness, because that's our natural state.
Gotcha.
And we're cleansing away the burdens that are in the way of us being in our natural state of wholeness. And so, of course, it takes longer to get there for people on an emotional, mental level, because 20, 30, 50 years of a negative habit of depression or anger or whatever takes longer to change and cleanse. So actually, I'd say healing someone of the thought pattern is really even sometimes deeper than the physical healing that occurs.
That's very interesting. I had not known that. That's very helpful. Now, because we want to get as much information as we can.
So they don't pull it back in,
yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman that you worked on,
Yes.
and he had something going on with his heart. So if you would tell us that, and then we want to hear all about what you're doing, all your different programs.
Okay, thank you. There was a wonderful man in the South who I had showed up that day, and actually I came from the airport to the house, and we were doing the program in the house and in that particular town, and he thought the program was that day when it was actually the next day. So he showed up at the house a day early, which really was his soul finding him the help that he needed to save his life. So he showed up, and he happened to be a friend of the host's. And so the host let him in the house and said, well, here's Mirabai. She just arrived from the airport. You're a day early. And I sat down to talk to the guy, took one look into his heart, and literally, the guy had never met me in his life, and I just jumped on him and pulled out what appeared to be a black mass. It looked like a black globular energy that was stuck in his physical heart, and just pulled it out and released it. And literally, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know anything about him, he was diagnosed with a severe heart condition, and he was on the verge of having a heart attack.
Wow.
And that first experience, because this was the first one, saved him from a heart attack. He knew it. He told me about it afterwards, and he told me he had been diagnosed that he could have heart attacks. He was really in a critical condition.
Wow.
And that saved his life. About 9 years later, he showed up in Kauai at my house to do a retreat with me, because 9 years later, he had now developed AFib in his heart, which many of you know about. The arrhythmical heartbeat, which sometimes can be very, very difficult. And it was so severe, the doctors had said that if he traveled, he could have a heart attack or a stroke. And it was now a different form. He had had heart problems before, as you know, and this was a different manifestation 9 years on. And so back to the story I just shared with you about changing the causes and changing the actions that caused the particular disease. And this time he showed up with that condition, and he had been advised to go to the local hospital and not out of state. Well, he had gotten on an airplane and flown to Kauai to see me. He said, I'd rather die. I'd rather die than not get this healing with you. This is what I need. And so he showed up, and we did a week retreat. And of course, he never had the AFib again. He never had the AFib again. He never even had to go back to the doctor for the AFib in particular. So that was truly a divine miracle, God's grace.
So beautiful. Now, we don't have that many minutes left, so we're going to see how much information we can get into these last 13 minutes.
Okay,
so
great.
I understand that you've started offering retreats around the country, which is new, that we don't have to now come to you in Kauai. So tell us just briefly about that.
Yes, we've changed the system from just coming to do a retreat in Kauai to being able to offer it on my tours, which are offered usually on my routes, which tend to be the same routes every year for the last 15 years, where I go to the same cities at the same time of year, so that people in that community can come to the public darshans, light transmissions, and individual sessions and workshops and gatherings that are offered. But now we're opening up the space for individuals to be able to actually do a 5-day retreat in-house, wherever I am in that city, in their own city, so that they can experience a much deeper retreat, like the man I just spoke about who came in for the deep AFib, where he was diagnosed where he could have a heart attack or cancer. The first person who came on a retreat with me in Kauai was actually healed of prostate cancer. The second person was this man who was healed of that chronic heart disease, AFib. And the third person went into a state of samadhi or bliss for several years after her retreat. So I can recommend that the retreats have brought pretty miraculous experiences about, both in awakening consciousness and in healing the body. So that's why we need to offer these deeper opportunities to people. And usually it can take about 5 days to get that deep into the core and the causal levels, as I explained earlier on, once you go into the emotional and mental causes, beyond just healing the symptoms, which is really what I prefer to do.
Yes.
And because it's more holistic that way. So that means that you can check the website, and if there's a tour in your city, you can book a individual retreat.
Fabulous. That is just thrilling. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's just, well, wonderful. Wonderful for all of us.
Yes.
Now, I know that we were going to talk about different prayers that you offer, because I really think that while it's great to say they can go to your website and Howard's website, I've done this with 1,000 people, so I'm telling you, you have to actually, in order to have a large percentage of people actually do it, something more direct has to happen.
Right.
And, you know, we're here, you're here, because we are committed to all of you having the results you want in your life. So what I'd like to do is have you say a prayer for health, and then I would recommend that each of you turn on your iPhone to the message part so that you actually record this right now while Mirabai is speaking. And believe me, when it's on my TV at home, I'm going to do that. I'm going to record it that way. And that way they have your prayer for health, and then we'll do another one, and then if you're willing, we'll do another one. So a prayer for health, a prayer for a relationship, a prayer for abundance, whatever you say. If you could just do a brief one of each, it'd be great. And you can do one and say what it is, and then do it.
Yes.
And then say what the next one is, and do it, and say what the next one is.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to close my eyes, if that's okay, just so I can connect to the divine within me, the divine light within me.
Please, and I'll watch the clock while you're doing that.
Okay, perfect. So the first prayer is a prayer for health. And I just want to mention before I begin that I work very closely with Howard Wills and the forgiveness prayers. I've been helping Howard Wills to spread the forgiveness prayers to millions of people all over the world. And so what I'm going to create here are some short forgiveness formulas. The first one will be for health. The second one will be for relationship, and then we'll pick a third topic for you, maybe for abundance. That seems to be a common theme for everyone. Okay, here we go. Divine light, please help me, my family, and all of my entire lineage throughout all time, all space, and all dimensions, to forgive each other and forgive ourselves, forgive all people forgive us, for all hurts, wrongs, and mistakes that we've done to each other and done to ourselves that have caused any health, concern, or challenge that I am now addressing. I ask you, please, divine light, to completely cleanse me, forgive and release me, and help me to forgive myself and to be forgiven for all hurts, wrongs, mistakes, and burdens that I have carried for others that are causing this particular health condition. Please, Divine Light. Thank you, Divine Light. Thank you, Divine Light. Thank you. Amen. So in that prayer, what we did is we cleansed you, we cleansed your family, and then we cleansed your lineage of all hurts, wrongs, and mistakes, because sometimes our health issues come from burdens that come through ancestral or lineage or family karma. So that addressed that portion. Then we went to you individually, your own hurts, wrongs, and mistakes. That's your own individual karma, negative karma, accumulation of your own negative thoughts, words, or actions over time that could have caused this particular health challenge, and cleansed that, or asked the Divine Light to cleanse that. When you call on the Divine Light, automatically the healing occurs. And then we asked, please, Divine Light, thank you, Divine Light, amen. And so that is what we call a prayer formula. It's a short prayer formula of cleansing to address your particular causes of your health concern. And you can take the word health challenge or concern and replace it with whatever your particular condition is, in this case, in this prayer, because you're making an appeal to the Divine Light, please, and thank you, Divine Light.
Now, we could have time for both of those prayers,
yes,
but not for an explanation.
Okay, perfect, yes.
Because we're really tight.
Okay, so now we're going to do relationships.
Yes, please.
Divine Light, for me and for all of my relationships, please help us all to forgive each other, to forgive ourselves, to be forgiven from now on, completely and totally, for all of the hurts, wrongs, and mistakes that we've done to each other or done to ourselves that caused any pain or suffering throughout our lives and lifetimes. Please, Divine Light, help us all to forgive and release each other and ourselves. Please, Divine Light. Thank you, Divine Light. Thank you. Amen. Prayer for abundance. Divine Light, please bless me with your infinite divine prosperity and abundance. Please open my heart to help me to receive your divine love in all forms of abundance that I am needing right now in my life for these special circumstances at this time. Please help to magnify, bless, and empower my intentions for manifesting this abundance into my life now. Please, Divine Light, through your grace, thank you, Divine Light. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you. So, you know, every time that Mirabai does a prayer today, I see her lit from within, becoming like an alabaster statue that I'm familiar with, the beautiful statues made in India of the Devis and the gods and goddesses, just lit from within. And we just have a few minutes, but I want to have you tell us about your global teleconferences.
Thank
and
you.
I just first want to say that when I participate, I go into the deepest level of bliss. It happens each and every time, which is an absolute rarity for me, that each and every time someone connects to the light, and I'm connecting to them, that I go into this blissful, exquisite state. So tell us how they can participate, please.
So happy to hear that, Susan. We are beginning a weekly light transmission teleconference that you can jump on the telephone anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, as long as you can make the time zone, and participate in receiving a divine light transmission, which will help you with any aspect of your health or manifestation of abundance, or with your relationships. We're going to be moving that from the telephone to live streaming through the internet shortly here in the next couple of months. You can find out more about that teleconference. In the meantime, we're also doing the Global Healing teleconferences on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, which are focused on global healing for the planet and for particular situations, cataclysms and weather, fires and floods included. And we're going to be focusing particularly on healing the oceans, the Pacific Ocean, Fukushima, and other global crises, when we bring our groups together in prayer and guided visualization and meditation. There are quantum leaps in the evolution of consciousness on the planet, which change real life circumstances. The other teleconferences are on abundance, the Mayan light activation, and also we'll be introducing new teleconferences in 2014. So stay posted on the website and the newsletter for the new teleconferences. Every month we do teleconferences of light transmission from the ocean, from waterfalls, from somewhere deep in nature, from the mountaintop, so that we have the nature transmission of the devas, the water devas and so forth, the light beings coming through to help us. Now, we're going to talk about
That's really it for the actual show. We've got 3 quick announcements.
Okay,
but
beautiful.
I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
We needed 5 hours. We needed 15 hours. We'll have to do it in small increments. You know, you guys will get, an hour here and an hour there, as Mirabai is gracious enough to come to the studio in Santa Barbara. She's got 3 amazing things so far scheduled for 2014. One is the Holy Fest in March in Utah. There will be about 55,000 people there, which is just so thrilling, isn't it? And then there is the Shakti Fest and also Bhakti Fest in Joshua Tree. Shakti Fest is in May, Bhakti Fest is in September. But I really encourage you to sign up for her notices. That it's a great website, beautiful website, and you are both, doing this healing work, doing this light work, and also connected to very competent IT people. It's really a first. So you really do get these emails. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to Jared and to Tyler and to TV Santa Barbara. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.